Good morning. Today we will do Seven Ages composed by the great William Shakespeare. Now in this poem, actually this poem has been taken from a comic drama composed by William Shakespeare himself named As You Like It. In that there was a comical character by the name of Jackass. Now Jackass was doing a soliloquy. That means he was talking to himself. And in that soliloquy, he tells us about the seven ages of a man, how a human being comes into this physical world and how he goes from this physical world. In between, he plays different parts, and those different parts have been named or have been categorized or divided into seven different parts. For this, the poet says the seven ages. Now, going through the poem starts from all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being seven ages. Now, in this, the great William Shakespeare, he tells us, he introduces this poem by telling us that all the worlds, that means the physical world in which all the human individuals live. This physical world, according to the great William Shakespeare, is nothing but a stage. So, what the poet has done, he has compared the earth, the place where people live, to a drama stage. Now, on a drama stage, the players, that is the actors and the actresses, they are assigned some role, they are given some role, they come, they perform those roles, and then the drama ends. The drama can be of any duration. It can be of half an hour, it can be of 1 hour, it can be of 2 hours, it can be of 3 hours. But it has to end. So, what happens? On a drama stage, we see the players, the actors and the actresses, they come, they are assigned some roles by the directors, by the writers, they perform those acts, and then the curtain drops and the act is over, and everyone enjoys the play. Similarly, the human individuals, they come on this earth, on this physical earth, or on this physical world, and they also perform different acts over here. So the poet over here has compared the physical world in which we live to that of a drama stage. Now the poet further says, and all the men and women. So according to the poet, every human individual on this earth, what actually they are? They are nothing but players. They are just mere players. They have been assigned some roles by the great God. Though the human individuals, they boast that they have done such things, they have achieved such achievements in their life, they have been greats, but they forget that the things that they do, actually the reason behind is God himself. He has given the individuals certain roles, so those individuals, they perform those roles and then they depart. So the poet further says they have exit, that means death. Exit can be taken in the form of death. And entrance is birth. So we see a human individual, when he or she is born, comes all of a sudden into the physical world, and then after living certain duration or after living the complete lifespan, withers away, dies away, and leaves this physical world forever. So that becomes his exit. So he came, he performed his acts, and then finally he departed. So in between he has played different parts. So the poet further adds, and one man means every human individual on this earth. So one man in his time means in his lifetime. the life duration. Now suppose a human individual lives the complete lifespan of 100 years as we suppose. So what will happen? He will play many parts. That means a man will pass through different phases. Initially he will be a small child, then he will grow slightly old, he will become a boy, then he will become even elder, and we see in the old age he becomes extremely feeble. So a human individual plays different parts. He passes through different phases. And the poet has divided these acts into seven ages. That means seven different stages. So we can say the poet compares the world to a stage in a theater. Now he compares the men and women to players. The stage has both exit and the entrances as we know. So do have men and women in their death and births respectively. Now we see that men and women, they come on the stage in their births. They play their different roles and go away in the form of deaths. These stages, acts or parts played by them are normally seven according to the poet. Moving further, the poet says, at first the infant mewling and cooking in the nurse's arms. Now we see that when a human individual is born, he is extremely small. So we can say he is a small infant. Infant is a small baby. So at first, the human individual comes and plays the role of a infant, that is a small baby. Now the poet further says mewling and pucking. Mewling means crying. So most of the time, what happens? The small babies, the small infants, they cry. That becomes their tendency. And pucking means a sort of a vomit, or we can say the fluid, the discharge of the fluid from their mouth in the nurse's arms. Now the word nurse over here should not be confused. Nurses means the caretaker. Now caretaker can be any. Caretaker can be mother, can be father, can be brother, can be sister, can be the nurse herself, can be the doctor, can be anyone. So what will happen if anybody will pick up a small baby in his or her arms? Generally the small babies, what they will do, they will cry, and then most of the time they just eke out the fluid substance from their mouth. That's why the poet says mewling and perking in the nurse's arms. Moving further, the poet says, then the winning schoolboy with his facial and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Now, the poet says, or the poet feels that after the first stage, when the human individual grows further, he becomes a winning schoolboy. Winning is a complaining. So he complains most of the time. He has problem with almost all the things. Especially over here, we are talking about the schoolboy. So that means in this stage, the human individual as a boy doesn't want to go to school with his satchel. Satchel actually is a big bag. Now, generally we see the small schoolboy having a bag on his shoulders which is quite heavy, and then the schoolboy is quite unwilling to go to school. Now there can be many reasons why the schoolboy is unwilling to go to school. First of all, at school he feels insecure. When he was infant, he got all the love and care from his dear ones, from his parents, from the people in general. But at school, it is a complete different territory for him. At school, his demands are not fulfilled. At home, his demands are fulfilled. So, the small boy, he is quite sharp enough to understand these things. That's why he doesn't like to go to school. Because at school, for many hours, he will be left stranded. His demands and wish won't be fulfilled. And shining morning phase. Now, shining morning phase can be compared to the early morning sun. Now, early morning sun is quite fresh. Initially, or we can say similarly, the small baby is also very innocent, very fresh. He has all the innocence written on his face. Similarly, early morning sun also appears very pleasant to us. Creeping like snail. Now, snail we all know is a sort of a small insect which moves very slowly. So, when the schoolboy goes to the school, as we said or as we have learned, that he is quite unwilling, he is not ready. So he creeps like snail. That means he goes very slowly. He drags his feet very slowly. Where? Unwillingly to the school. That means he is quite unwilling. He is not ready. He has not accepted the school. So he is not ready to move to the school. So we can say that the first stage or the first role played by man is that of an infant. He cries weakly and commits. Now he cries weakly and vomits milk in the arms of the nurse. He grows strong with the passage of time. Then he plays the role of a complaining and unwilling schoolboy. He goes to school with the speed of a snail, carrying a big, or we can say a bag which is quite big, full of books. This is his second act or second stage or second age.